Welcome to Design Downtime, the podcast where we celebrate the joys of living a balanced, creative life. I'm your host, Guy Siegel, a design director in Toronto, Canada, and I invite you to join me on this journey as we redefine what it means to be a successful design professional. Let's break free from the shackles of hustle culture and embrace the full spectrum of human experience, because life is too precious to be spent only in pursuit of productivity. Today, I'm excited to talk to Jess Paris. Jess is the Director of Design Systems, Visual Design, and DesignOps at ServiceTitan, where she's passionate about turning design systems into more than guardrails. They're her favorite playground for clarity, creativity, and helping teams build things that actually help users. Based in Denver, Jess loves Colorado life, snowboarding in the winter, paddleboarding in the summer, and hitting the trails all year long. She's not great at sitting still, whether she's tinkering in her garden, taking on new home projects, or trying out punch needling just to see where it goes. Jess is always chasing the next idea or hobby to explore. And of course, every adventure is made better with her border collie mix, Ollie, by her side. Jess, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always so funny to hear that back, but it's true. I am not the best at sitting still, so it's probably why I love to snowboard.
You wrote it, so I'm assuming you were honest in your bio.
Of course, but isn't it? It's always interesting to kind of write your own introduction, Find that sweet balance, but that was great. Thanks, Guy, for having me.
It's my pleasure. And as you said, we're going to talk about snowboarding.
Let's talk about it.
So I always like to start with the origin story. How did you get into snowboarding?
This is a funny story. I grew up on the East Coast, specifically right outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland. And I was lucky enough to be in a family that was interested in skiing and snowboarding and winter sports and things like that. We had some small mountains around us. But when I was around maybe between the ages of 10 and 12, we started to go to Vermont. And so we would take these road trips up to Stowe, Vermont and go skiing there. And we would go with this other family, and I was in a ski school. Well, Guy, I was on the lift. I'm 12 years old about. I was on the lift. I dropped my ski poles, and I instinctively jumped off the lift. It wasn't so high. This wasn't some sort of acrobatic move. This was just a silly child thinking that's what you do to get your things. It was maybe 5 or 6 feet up, but that was enough for them to kick me out of ski school. So I was no longer allowed to be in ski school because I was a liability in a sense. And I always thought that snowboarding looked a little more fun, a little bit more adventurous, but I also thought that the boots and the shoes looked obscenely more comfortable than what I was wearing for ski boots. So I wanted to do that. And that was sort of my little sign. So my parents put me in a snowboard class. At that point, it had to be a private class because I was already kicked out of the group class for skiing. And it was so cool. I remember very distinctly, I had like a really, really interesting instructor who was really fun. I remember he was deaf, and I had a little bit of experience with sign language because I had a childhood friend whose brother is deaf. And he was just so fun, and he made it so fun. And after that, I was hooked. I couldn't stop. I was really into it. I would save up all my babysitting money to buy my board and all my gear. And it's not a cheap sport at all. So I just became like really obsessed with it. I think that maybe when you find something like that you feel like you're naturally kind of good at, especially at that age, I felt pretty comfortable. It just took off for me. And it's really kind of shaped a lot of my decisions as both an adolescent, but really as an adult, and especially how I landed in Denver. Yeah.
So snowboarding was a deciding factor in you coming to Denver?
In a way, snowboarding was absolutely a deciding factor in me coming out to Colorado. So many moons ago, I was actually in college for psychology, and I realized pretty quickly this was too much for me. It was too much tests. It was too many years of school. It wasn't quite aligned with what I wanted to do. And I needed to take a break to figure out what I wanted to do. And this was very early 20s. And I had already been spending some time in the summers in Oregon, going to government camp and doing snowboard camps. And I just kept it going for a long time. And I needed a break from college, I guess, in that sense. So I moved to Breckenridge, Colorado, sight unseen, so that I could snowboard every day. And I lived there for about 3 years. I waited tables. I had a small stint selling timeshare tours, which was not I'm not a salesperson. So it wasn't the best in that sense. But I lived out there for about 3 years just so I could snowboard every day. And I never got over the mountains of Colorado. And so when I moved back to DC to switch careers, switch my education, start my career in this field of tech and design systems and engineering and all those wonderful pieces, once I got that under my belt and I felt like confident about my career, I made the big move back to Denver almost 10 years ago now. So it's really shaped a lot of my decisions, right? Is following that passion for snowboarding and my obsession in a way with the mountains. I never get sick of it.
Did you ever have a moment where you said to yourself, maybe this could be my career?
It's a good question. I did. There was a point in time where I would do a few kind of low-level competitions, mostly when I was out in Oregon, and they were really fun. I honestly hurt myself too much, right? You have some nasty accidents. It gets a little scary. And back then, we weren't really wearing helmets. Like, I did not wear a helmet when I was at camp. It wasn't something that was mandated. We never really wore helmets until I was in my 20s living in Breckenridge, and we would start to. But, you get hit on the head, you get some concussions, you get some broken bones, and it starts to maybe have you take a little bit of a pause for it. But it was so much fun. A lot of what we would do is more like the freestyle stuff you see sometimes in the Olympics. But yeah, I never got to quite that place, but it was definitely something that I had hoped for and maybe could have pursued if I had really spent the time with it.
So you didn't go into the competitive aspect of snowboarding?
I didn't. I wanted to. I think like when I even think about my career in creative design world, I actually originally wanted to do something like I was designing for snowboards and skis and kind of getting into that field, which is much more of like an illustrator sort of role. But it was, I think I just learned as I grew up, it was more stable to do something different, to follow a different kind of passion and just kind of move away from it. It would have been a really interesting career choice to go that route, or even, integrating myself with that community in a way where maybe I worked on the tech side for a sports brand or something of that like, but I never really made that crossover in a sense. I just sort of allowed it to be my passion, free Jess time sort of thing. And living in Denver, it's crazy easy for me to get out there and get in on the weekends or visit friends and just enjoy it that way. And I also wonder a lot that if it was my job, would I enjoy it as much, right? I love my job. I love what we do for work, but it is still a job. It does still pay the bills and all those pieces. And if you put something like that gives you so much sense of freedom, like for me, nothing bothers me when I'm flying down the hill on a snowboard. And I'm just having the time of my life. I'm not scared. I'm not worried about my next meeting or anything like that. And I wonder if I had that pressure of it being my paycheck, if it would do that. Do you have anything like that you think about with like you're so passionate about that you?
No, I mean, as this podcast is, the main thesis here is finding those things that are not tied to you hustling for them, right? So
Right. That's true.
I think for me, it's really important to have that separation of let's not make a hobby something that becomes a life or death thing for you, like, or becomes something that you rely on. And then takes out the fun for me.
Yeah, it takes out the fun. Yeah. So that's also kind of why I sort of left it in that nice space where you have this really busy work week, and then I can go and snowboard for a couple of hours and just come back happy and exhausted, and it's separate from my job. So I think it worked out well that I never pursued it that way.
I'm curious about that first time on a snowboard. What was the new sensation?
So I was 12, so it's been a very long time now. What I always remember the most about snowboarding and what I love the most is the sensation of the air flying past your face. And I really like to, any snowboarders listening will know is like carving is a very kind of a sharp, almost like dancing on the snow. And you're just going down this mountain. And usually, whether it's really safe or not, I'm not sure. But I listen to a lot of music while I'm snowboarding. I have very curated playlists that I listen to. And so I am just in the just zone. The feeling around me physically is a lot of just the wind whipping at you. But internally, you also feel a little bit like you're both really free, but in a second, you could fall and something really bad could happen, which of course has. That's an interesting story in itself. Some of my worst injuries. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. My worst one ever was when I broke my jaw and had a really nasty concussion in government camp in Oregon at a snowboard camp one summer. I was last day at camp trying to complete a jump. It wasn't anything huge. It wasn't anything I hadn't done before, but just didn't clear it and landed in the pit on the other side of the jump. And the whole ski patrol having to get me down. I basically kind of like folded like a lawn chair and hit my own head on the board and knocked myself out and broke my jaw. It was, and you're a dad. I was maybe 15 at the time on the other side of the country from my parents. And they got that call from ski patrol, 2 ambulances, because you have to do the mountain ambulance and all of those things. And I don't remember this, but I remember them telling my parents that when I was going down in the ski patrol sled, another person ran into the sled. So there's just so many things that can happen. I was fine, obviously. I was put on a plane the next day. I was fine. But things like that can happen at any moment because at the end of the day, it is an extreme sport. It is something where you are not on a leash. You are not in a full bodysuit. Things can happen. And luckily, my body at that age was okay to recover from things like that. Not as great now. Right. I fall now and I feel it. I like really feel it. Yeah.
Is it something that consciously enters your mind? Like you're about to go downhill. Do you think about, here are all the things that can go wrong?
No, you can't. If you do that, you're just going to be so scared. And it's just going to be not enjoyable. Right. Which is also a little bit of a mind game because I certainly know I certainly know what can happen and how bad that hurts and how long it lasts and all that good stuff. So, no, you definitely can't think of it, but you have to be aware of it. You have to be safe. I see a lot of people, and, maybe I was one of them back in the day, but flying off of things with no concept of who's around them. It's very easy to hit people on these slopes. You have to be careful. And if you're not comfortable enough on a snowboard, then it's so much better, or skis, anything like that. It's so much better for you to stay on certain slopes or stay to the side. It's dangerous. Like it really is a dangerous game for anybody to be on those slopes. And I think that the biggest thing I actually think about is the danger of the people around me. Am I going to put anybody else in danger by going this fast or taking this turn or doing this jump? And that's what I'm most aware of is just my surroundings as I'm going. Because it's in a way, it's like driving a car. You can hit somebody if you're going too fast or you're out of control or you're distracted. I've gotten too comfortable snowboarding and pulling my phone out to take a picture as I'm going. Like that is like texting and driving, right? It's not safe. And luckily, I've only hurt myself doing that. You catch an edge and you fall forward. But it's things like that and just being aware of your surroundings. And I feel like it's just sort of part of the state of being when I'm snowboarding. I'm in this state of nothing is really bothering me right now. I can feel the cool air. I can feel it, I'm sweating, but it's also cold at the same time. I'm listening to great music. I'm really in the zone. But my eyes are glued around who's around me. Are there children here? Just being safe and making sure because these mountains out here in Colorado get so packed with people, especially around the ski seasons. So you just have to be conscious of it. We also have billboards everywhere on your way to and from the mountains for the lawyers if you get hit or if you hit somebody else. And I am trying to avoid any litigation. So, yeah.
It's a good advice for life. Has your love for snowboarding, did it get you to try other extreme sports?
Oh, what a good question. Not really, to be honest with you, right? Like I have out here in Colorado, a lot of people do mountain biking, which I think that's probably considered extreme sport. I have never done it. I am also though with that. I think maybe because I'm not as comfortable in that scenario, I've never done it because I'm too afraid that I will just fall right over the handlebars, hit my head, and hurt myself in that sense too much. Rocks and ground scare me a lot more than snow does. I think there's just an ability to get like really hurt differently there too. But I never really have tried anything too extreme outside of that, unless you consider backpacking kind of extreme. Maybe like you're hiking out with a whole big pack and living in the woods for a couple days. We've done that. But I've never really done anything where I could hurt myself anymore. Never got into parkour or anything cool like that. You said that you're not a skier or a snowboarder. Does your family or you do any kind of snow sports? I know you have kids. Are they interested in it at all? Have they ever? Because you're in Canada, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have some snow here now and then. The kids definitely have been skiing and have tried. I think they tried snowboard. But again, we don't. It's once or twice a year for us. It's not like, oh, I'm stepping out of the house and I'm down the hill.
Sure. And you can't do that in Denver either. You do have to drive and the traffic can be a nightmare. But that's kind of similar to what it was when I was growing up too, where my parents made it accessible for me, which I'm incredibly grateful for because it is not a cheap sport. In fact, eventually, after I was getting hurt so much, it turned to be like it was now on me financially to make sure to pay for it if I wanted to keep doing this to myself. But that was similar where I think, my parents modeled that this was something that was available to me if I was interested in it. And I just got like just so into it.
After that first time where you were banned from skiing.
Yeah, ski school.
I'm assuming you skied since.
That's such a good question. No, I have never skied down a mountain since. I absolutely have done cross-country skiing because that's pretty common here is you just kind of rent a pair of skis and go, which is always a little intriguing because it's just a different way to do it and it feels different. You're not strapped onto one thing. You're not facing one direction. You're facing straight. It's always looked really fun. And I definitely have lots of friends that ski over snowboarding. In fact, I think probably today, most of my social circles are skiers, which is interesting. So I've done that, cross-country skiing, kind of played around. Like sometimes you can go to these mountain towns and just rent a cabin and put on your skis and like ski around town, even to go to the restaurants and things like that, which is really fun, but never down a mountain since. And I don't really know why. I certainly had my share of wipeouts on skis too when I was a kid, and also why ski school happened, but I never really tried it. I think I just, it might come down to the shoe wear. Like the shoe wear for skis looks terrible. It just looks so bad. And I have very flat feet. I need comfort. They're so bad. Every time I'm with somebody who's skiing, they never get their boots right. It never feels all that comfortable. And they can never get their boots right. And snowboard boots are pretty much just huge sneakers. It's great. So I just couldn't be uncomfortable like that for too long.
I'm curious about how involved you are in the community and even the culture of snowboarding.
I feel like I used to be a lot closer to the culture. When I lived out in Breckenridge, I was very much in the community there in a sense. Like, of course, that's actually probably when I knew more snowboarders was when I lived there because we were all kind of on the same page. It's sort of this nomadic culture. You're working a day job, but if you're not working for the mountain, you're pretty you do your work schedule so that you can spend the majority of the day up there, or you can spend half the day up there in all those pieces. And so I was, in a community in a sense there, because you're just around people that have also made this their life. They've moved away from where they grew up to have this kind of experience for however long. And so I was definitely involved in a sense there. I have some friends that work at different snowboard or ski companies around here, just being in Denver. But I guess I never really got too involved in the culture outside of that. I think, and I blame the fact that I decided to go back to DC and go back to school, maybe that I lost some of those connections and community pieces. And I think also the community in maybe around Denver is awesome and welcoming. I think it's also just probably much younger than me today, right? The people that are still flying off of some of these jumps and just, that kind of thing. But we also really have lots of different screenings for like snowboard movies or ski movies and things like that. And so it's really fun in that sense. But I guess I'm probably starting to feel like a little too old for these really cool kids. We all know that feeling.
Oh my God, let's not go there.
But it's so funny because now we could get into a really interesting hot topic, which is, skiers and snowboarders used to be very much at odds, right? You were kind of like a rebel and outlaw person if you were on a snowboard. And there's places in Utah and I think even here in Colorado that used to not allow any snowboarders at all in the mountain because we were just reckless wild beasts, I guess. And I feel like when I lived in Breckenridge almost 10 years ago now, it was not so much that kind of energy. And I think that's a little bit more of like a older culture is like my dad skis and definitely sees me on a snowboard thinking like she's a rebel, crazy lady out there flipping around on a snowboard. And he's just, carving his way down, cruising the whole mountain in a pizza slice. But it's so funny because it used to be this like, I don't know. I feel like snowboarders have a bit of a reputation against skiers. Like, do you feel that? Have you heard that ever? Do you get a different impression of somebody if you've ever heard that?
Not these days, no.
Okay.
But, in the 90s, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
You mentioned music, and you mentioned you have your playlist. What's on your playlist?
Okay. I have a couple of different playlists. And, if after this podcast people really want access, I could maybe make them public. But I have a few friends that are on them. I call them all my shred playlist. Like shred is, lingo in the snowboarding world. And so one is shred mix. And my shred mix has been around forever, at least 10 years now, probably more like 15. And my shred mix changes every year. I have friends that are part of it where like I go to their house and they're playing the new shred mix. Like everybody loves it, but it is all rap and R&B. The shred mix is all rap and R&B. And I think it's because the bass is just so fun. It's just this like really easy beat to follow. I like to dance a little bit when I'm snowboarding and kind of vibe out with it and just have a good time. And so the shred mix is really fun. And then I've also got my chill shred mix. Chill shred is like a little bit more of maybe what's on it? Like maybe a little Maggie Rogers. Maybe it has something that still has like a really nice beat, but it is a little bit less intense. It's just a little bit more like, the mountains around you and this cool rock, folky kind of stuff. So your next question is probably, how do I choose which to start with that day too?
It's somewhat tied to it because music and emotion are very much tied together. What would be the different circumstances that you go snowboarding? Do you ever use it to de-stress versus, you know what, I'm going to use it for some, I need to do some creative thinking?
Oh, that's so interesting. So I think I really try to do it to de-stress. It truly, there's There's not a lot else that I do that clears my head like that, which is interesting because it is not easy to necessarily get up and snowboard, because living in Denver, obviously it makes it very accessible. It's also, Denver has gotten really populated over the last few years. Our highways that take you to the mountains, they're not huge. And so you can get, if you leave 20 minutes too late, that's an extra 3 hours of traffic for you, kind of thing. So you really have to be like in a mindset, especially during the main season, that you are out there and you're doing this. And like, this is, there's a benefit also behind spending all that time in the car, getting ready, all that good stuff. But all of it to say, I have always had a really strong draw to the mountains, snowboarding or hiking. As a kid, like I didn't really grow up with big mountains like this at all. And I think snowboarding really got me into it, which has, again, like led me to Denver, but also a general obsession with the mountains. And so I usually look at, if I'm having a really stressful week and I'm meditating and I'm trying to get myself like just kind of even, chill out, enjoy, like you said, get out of the hustle. If I get to the mountains, that's really helpful for me, whether it's a hike or something else. Like my family will say to me, you sound like you need to go outside and go snowboarding or walking or hiking or something of the like and spend time in nature. I actually find that time so coveted that I really try not to do creative thinking for work. If it's for something different, absolutely. I like to tinker projects of the house or things I want to play with or new technologies or things like that, planning for trips, things of that nature. But I don't like to think about work at all while I'm up there. I get a little upset with myself if my brain starts to go that way, because in reality, that is just time. Even if I'm out there with somebody else, with friends, or by myself, I often go by myself and we'll just spend a few hours cruising, which is great. I want that time to just be just time, clearing my head, not worrying about what the next week brings at work, not worrying about the next project or AI tooling we have to start testing, things like that, right? Or the state of the world. I mean, there's so many things that can come into your brain during that time. And I find it to be like a really interesting and helpful mental exercise for me to push it all out in those scenarios and just take in where I am. Because how sad would it be to be cruising down a mountain in Colorado, looking at these just unbelievable range of mountains and snow, and the views are incredible every time you go. But here I am thinking about my next, quarterly project, right? It's just like I need to use that time for me. The stress of life can wait.
There are people listening to this and who have never snowboarded, but they might be curious about it. Do you have any tips that people can use to get them to try it out? You know it better than me. What are the things that you see people who are just starting? What are some common things that people can avoid?
I think that everybody who kind of has ever come to me and said, oh, I want to start snowboarding or I want to try it, tends to follow that up with, but I'm really afraid to fall. And that's a bit of a metaphor for life, right? Is trying something new, you're going to fall. Like I can't tell you that it's not going to hurt when you fall. I can tell you to get a pad for your pants that might help you when you fall on your butt and it hurts, or your tailbone. But you have to be okay with the fact that that might happen and take it at your own speed. I always sort of say is anything you want to try new, you don't, and especially something physical like this, you don't have to go so deep. Grab your friend's board or grab a quick demo board. I like to give tips like if you go to a shop that's on a mountain or anywhere in your town that's like a ski or snowboard shop, so a lot of times they'll let you demo boards instead of getting those kind of older, crappier ones that might be in the rental space. So you can do things like that. Try new stuff because the board is going to make a big difference too. Make sure it's the right fit for you. Make sure it's the right size. It will affect how you perform out there and your comfort levels. Same with your shoes and things like that. But not to spend a ton of money on it right away because it's expensive. The gear's expensive. The lift tickets and season tickets are disgustingly expensive. And so using a buddy pass, like if your friend has a season pass, you can get a discount, which is always a good one. And trying out maybe a demo board from a local shop is always great for local business too, over the big ski resorts. Making sure the shoes you get are actually comfortable, like tailoring your comfort first and just trying your damnedest not to be so scared. It's the worst thing that happens. Well, there's a lot that could happen. That's pretty bad, Guy. I'm not going to lie. But if you're going slow, if you're with somebody that's patient, I do like to go sometimes with people that have never done it and sort of teach a little bit. The best is just stay low. Do not straighten up on a board. You will fall immediately like a stick. So I think just kind of giving yourself like the grace and approaching it as something fun. It's not uncool to be on the bunny slope. Like, who cares? I'll be on the bunny slope with you. Hold your hand. Like, I've been that person off of the board, holding somebody's hand and just like running with them as they go. And so I think, it's just about being okay with not blowing everybody out of the water right away. You got to start somewhere. Same idea as anything else you're trying that's new. Don't be too afraid to fall.
That's great advice and a great metaphor.
Love it when that happens.
Jess, where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can find me on my portfolio, which is jessparis.co.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Guy. This was really fun. If anybody ever wants to talk about snowboarding or design systems or any of that good stuff, please do reach out.
This is all for this episode of Design Downtime. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, I hope you enjoy your downtime.